Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today we are going to talk about how to make some standard size cards out of our pattern paper. It's a great way to show off our pattern paper, and I have two different templates that I want to share with you today. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 4 different card ideas that I want to share with you that feature actually 2 different templates. So there's 2 different cutting templates for cutting your pattern paper so that you can make some standard size cards. So when I say standard size cards, I mean cards that are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches when they are closed. Now the cards in this video feature the Trusty Tools bundle from Stampin Up. So this particular bundle has a stamp set and a coordinating die set. And I will also be using some of the Trusty Toolbox Designer Series paper. So this particular paper pack is free with a qualifying purchase during Celebration. And Celebration runs until the end of February 2024. Now, of course, you can use any stamp set or pattern paper that you have on hand with the templates that I'm going to show you today. Okay, so let's start by talking about the first template. So to create the first 2 cards that I'm going to share with you, you need to cut your paper at 4 1/4 by 11 inches. So I cut my paper actually this way. It was a 12 by 12 inch piece. So I just cut a 4 1/4 inch piece all the way down, and then I just cut an inch off the bottom so that I ended up with a 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece. And then you just want to score it in the center to create your card base. So this is a standard card base, but this is just a great way to use your designer paper. If you have a lot of designer paper or a lot of pattern paper like I do, then this is just a great way to use it. So it is a little flimsy, but we are going to support this card with a couple different pieces of cardstock. All right, so I'm going to create a top folding card first. So what I'm going to do is just take that 1 by 4 1/4 inch piece. So remember, this was a 12 by 12 inch piece of pattern paper. So when I cut that inch off the bottom, I saved that piece, and then I just stamped a greeting on it, and I'm just going to adhere this to the bottom of the card front. The next thing I did is I just took some of these little rustic metallic dots and I just added them to the card front. So that is really all I did for this card on the front. On the inside, you'll see that this is the back side of the pattern paper. So this is double-sided pattern paper. And so on the inside, what I wanted to do is, of course, I wanted to make my card more sturdy because it is a little flimsier because you're using pattern paper instead of cardstock. So I just cut a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock, and then I used just some of the leftover scraps from cutting up this piece of designer paper. And I'm just going to add this up at the top. This is just a 3/4 by 4 inch piece. So I'm just basically decorating the inside of the card. And then we'll add this little cardstock piece. And this cardstock piece will actually give your card more support so that it's not so flimsy. And that is really it. So you have a really fun little card that shows off both sides of your pattern paper. So that is the top folding card. But you can also use, instead of creating a top folding card, you can use the same measurements, the 4 1/4 by 11, but instead of decorating it in this fashion, I simply turned it and decorated it in the landscape style. So it's the exact same template as this one. I just decorated it differently, that's all. I put my 1 by 4 1/4 inch piece on this side of the card, and then added just some different elements on the front. And then on the inside of this one, I added the same white paper, although this time I decided to use a different piece of pattern paper just to kind of bring out the silver here in the little saw blade. And it also makes the card a little bit sturdier. So you don't have to add that, it is optional. All right, so the second template for cutting your pattern paper is this one. You're just going to cut it a little bit differently. So instead of cutting at 4 1/4 by 11, I cut it at 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. And then I scored it in the middle at 4 1/4 inches to create the base of the card. So the nice thing is you can just kind of decide which side you want to use for your card front, and I think I'll use this side. So the next thing I did is I just cut a 2 1/2 by 3 1/2 inch piece of this is the same designer paper. So it has this grid on the inside. And then I cut a piece of Lost Lagoon at 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I'm just going to adhere these two pieces together to create the focal point for my card. I did stamp a little greeting on here using some gray granite ink. And then we'll add this right to the card front. And then the next thing I did is I just stamped the word Dad. So this is from that Trusty Tools bundle. So this is stamped in gray granite on some crushed curry cardstock. So I'm just going to pop this up with some dimensionals right on the front here. I cut it out with these Something Fancy dies. You can use any die cut shape you want to create that focal point. And then I just added some more little metallic dots. And that's basically the design for the front of my card. And then on the inside, of course, I want to support this a little bit more. So I have two pieces of cardstock here this time. I have a piece of Lost Lagoon, which is 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And so we will just adhere this right to our card. So this is going to go on the inside. Then I'm just going to add this white layer, which this is cut at 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So that will mat out nicely on the Lost Lagoon. But before I add that, I'm going to add a 3/4 by 5 inch piece of designer paper just to kind of decorate this piece a little bit here. And then we can go ahead and add this piece to the inside of our card. Okay, so that is what this card looks like. And it's pretty sturdy, even though it is made from designer paper. So this is the portrait style card, which is made from that 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 inch piece of designer paper. And then you can take that same measurement, the 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and you can create the card in landscape style. So that's what I did here. Same concept, same template. I just created a little different focal point for that card. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 4 different card ideas and 2 different templates that you can use to create these 4 different cards. And of course, you can use any pattern papers that you have on hand. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.